Ooh, I love that message. Well, hi everybody. We're the Skeleton Crew.
Hello.
We're
And
most of the skeleton
we're
crew.
most of the Skeleton Crew right now. I see there are 15 people in chat right now, which is a good number. Hopefully that'll be 16 when Alex is able to make it. But yeah, so this is a panel about the Skeleton Crew as a YouTube channel, as a kind of our concept behind it, why we wound up making the channel, the kinds of things we do, and all of that. So I guess, would it be all right if I started off, guys?
Absolutely. Well, do we have to do the thing and introduce ourselves?
Oh my God, I don't think we do. I think for this audience, we might not have. All right, fine. I'm Dr. James Napoli. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences and North Carolina State University, and I don't have a bit tonight.
Oh, okay. My name is Amelia Zietlow. I'm a PhD candidate at the Richard Gilder Graduate School of the American Museum of Natural History. And for those of you who are unaware, I work on mosasaurs.
My name is Scott Johnston. I'm the vertebrate paleontology fossil preparator and technician at Harvard University's Museum of Comparative Zoology, and I do all the hands-on fossil prep and everything else that involves directly handling fossils.
And my name is Dalton Meyer. I'm a PhD candidate at Yale University, and my research focuses on lizards of the terrestrial variety.
I would like to just correct the record, but because I didn't say what I work on. I do work on things. I mostly work on theropod evolution, ontogeny, and systematics. And we also have Alex, but not right now.
And he works on pallets.
He works on pallets and crocodiles, and increasingly on dinosaurs.
Oh my.
Indeed. So we had the idea to form the Skeleton Crew. I'm now feeling old and realizing about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because it was around, I think it was around when I was coming up to my dissertation defense.
Yes.
Right. It was kind of in the lead up to that. And it kind of sprung out of, we wound up on Discord playing video games a lot that year. I think it was really starting with Jurassic World Evolution 2 coming out, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of fun that that's now the game we mostly feature on the channel. But like we were just playing that a lot, so we'd all just boot it up and sit in the Discord call and play.
Just chat about dinosaurs and like
and life in general.
Life in
just
general.
what we were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a fun time. And then we started playing Call of Duty increasingly frequently. That's not like a dark turn or anything. That's just something that happened over time.
It's a little bit of a dark turn.
It's a little bit of a dark turn for us. And yeah, I think at some point we were talking a lot about Prehistoric Planet, actually. It had just come out, and there was obviously a lot of discourse about it and everything. And I kind of remember acutely just feeling like I wished I had more of a kind of media voice to weigh in on a lot of those discussions. And I remember us all talking about kind of how like we were to some degree bummed we didn't get to participate in making it. Like, not that we necessarily should have been, right? Because that project was in the works like long before we were even doing our PhDs. Or
even longer before mine.
Right, even longer before Scott's. But I guess what I'm saying is like that project started when we were very, very young in the field. And there's no reason that they would have gone to us for consulting.
I'm now wondering if I was actually working in fossil prep when it started, because I've been doing this forever.
Well, did you start when you were 10? Like
14.
14.
So,
yeah. Okay.
Pardon us.
You were in the field, Scott. You were in the field. We weren't.
All y'all whippersnappers.
I absolutely was not, because I don't think I consider myself a part of the field since like 2019.
Right. And I mean,
until 2019. You don't need to sit. It was just you left.
I left. I've been gone. I appeared in Brisbane and never returned.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I think going to SVP, publishing your first paper, that kind of like those watersheds, I don't know. They certainly wouldn't get a consultant who had never published a paper. I don't think. Yeah. You know, so I guess what I'm saying is it was not that we were like, why weren't we consulted? We're experts in the field. but just like, how do we kind of even have our names out there as people who they might want to talk to the next time a project like this happens? Right. I also knew about life on our planet already, which I also knew I wasn't going to be talked to about that one. And so I remember we were talking a lot about these kinds of things, these media things, and how to kind of like make a name for yourself and kind of feel like you're known in your field. And the reason I'm telling this story is that I think I am the one who said the phrase that doomed us all here, which was, we need to have a stream. and
You were, and it
Yeah,
it's my fault, right?
Which very quickly became, we cannot have a stream.
Yes, no, we
So
could not
for
have a
like,
stream.
what, 6 months, we would be hanging out and every now and then say, we should have a stream. And then something would happen while we were playing Call of Duty that led us to say, we cannot have a stream.
Right.
And that happened for several months.
Yes. Although I don't remember. Does anybody else remember? I'll open the floor. When did we actually start talking about doing this for real?
It was summer, because I don't remember what actually caused us to actually buckle down and want to do it. I just remember it was summer because it was, I think, July that I had COVID, and that's when I made the logo. And that's when we first started making the actual like push to get it done and get it out in public, which, as some of you may know, July is not when we released our first video, because it would be many more months until we actually got our stuff together to do that. But yeah, no, I wonder if it was Dominion. I think it was you finishing your dissertation and Dominion coming out, and we were just like feeling like we wanted to participate again. Like it just kind of renewed our desire to, I guess, participate in conversation, basically, in a way that was more than just commenting on posts.
I think it was simultaneously like renewed vigor around doing it, of just like, hey, this big dinosaur thing came out, and also the fact that, I think it was like 3 things. It was that, it was the fact that it was the first time in a really long time we had all been together, and
I think it was the first time we were all together ever, was the defense.
Yeah, no,
I think
Amelia's
so.
right.
Really? All of us in person, yeah.
Because I, being the latecomer to this gaggle, had not that like I started in 2020, so like no one was traveling or visiting or anything.
I thought we had at least one before then. Well, I guess technically you were in Brisbane, but
Alex wasn't.
Oh yeah.
And
No, so I guess it was all of us together, and it was also that, like, with James passing this landmark, it felt like we're free to do something now.
It felt like we had time.
It was like oh, we like, at least one of our group has passed something and now has more time. That like everyone else is kind of business as usual, but James has crossed the finish line and we have time now.
Right. Yeah, and I think that all of us being in person together was honestly, like, I don't think that can be understated, because a lot of this, I think, in my conception of what the channel is, and this is something I'm sure we'll talk about more in the future, is, and by in the future I mean in like 10 minutes or so, is the dynamic between all of us as friends.
Yeah.
You know, and how much fun we have hanging out with each other. You know, there's a lot of time we just spend like just laughing a lot, having a wonderful time. And that, it's not like hanging out digitally can't do that, but there's something that is obviously different when you are all together in the same place. And I remember, you know, all of us going to see Jurassic World Dominion, all of us winding up at the bar afterward and just like occupying. There's a wonderful little bar on the Upper West Side of Manhattan called St. James Gate, which is my favorite place to go for celebrations, because there's a raised mezzanine area that you can just claim. And nobody sits up there because they think it's reserved, and it's never reserved. It's just open. So we just like walk up there, and you can look down upon the entire rest of the bar at all the peons down below who don't know that they can climb a short staircase and be at the high level, at the high table. And we went there afterward and we had a wonderful time. And I don't know. I think being in person was a big part of it. And then, Amelia got COVID, and we somehow, at some point, we decided we were actually going to do this. I don't actually remember that conversation at all. I don't either.
I don't think there was one.
Yeah,
I think
there wasn't a solid one.
I was going insane because I was locked in my apartment for 2 weeks, and I was like, "Hi, are we gonna do this? I need something to do. What is the logo going to be?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What is
You
the
kind
name?"
of
Well, we had to talk about a name, and I know we had to have done that before I had COVID,
Yeah.
because the COVID week that I was in quarantine was just straight up, we already had the name, I believe.
Yes. No, we did. We absolutely
Yeah.
did, because I mean, hell, we talked about it in one of our recent videos that it was like kind of most people's second choice for a name, but my first, and most people's second choice for a color scheme, and my first, and because I'm
Oh yeah,
the
Scott. All right,
average
Scott.
person. No. It's you said I was like the platonic average person. Or
Yeah.
you compared me to that one voter in Ohio that always predicts every election, and then I got mad at you because you compared me to Ohio.
Right. I'm sorry about that still. Yeah. No,
Well,
but
oh.
I mean, right. It was like, I don't remember ever actually. I do remember one thing I said when we were on a Discord call talking about it, which was just like, are you guys sure we want to do this? And everybody was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I guess that's when we decided to, but I don't remember how the conversation went from ha ha ha, what if we started streaming on Twitch or YouTube, to we've decided to make a YouTube channel.
Well,
Well,
I think
sorry,
it
go ahead.
was kind of gradual from the let's maybe do this to the point where we were doing a poll for a name, and it was like every time we would bring it up, it got a little less joking. And then we started to do things like, well, if we make a YouTube channel, like, what do we want to do? And if we make a YouTube channel, let's all suggest names, then we'll just vote on them. And then like slowly and slowly that accrued. I think up until the point where we had a logo, and then it felt real, and we decided to actually do something about it. But then we didn't do anything about it until we tried to record a video. And I think like November or December when we tried to do that
Well,
first
no,
tier
we-
list.
No, the
We
first
actually-
one we tried sooner. It was just a disaster.
Well, yeah, we had a couple of bad recordings early on.
Oh,
We
that's
really
right.
tried to start having videos drop over the summer.
Yep.
That footage I think still exists.
Oh, it does.
Maybe one day. But the first thing we actually tried to make a video about was before I went into the field in July. It was about the T-Rex species rebuttal paper.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh.
3 species of T-Rex thing.
Right, because for those of you who don't know, which appears to be pretty much everybody in our field, because I'm asked about my opinions on this paper that I wrote a rebuttal to constantly. So everybody's like, what do you think of Greg Paul's hypothesis? I'm like, well, if you check the author list of the rebuttal, I am the co-lead author on the rebuttal to it. So that might spoil a little bit what my thoughts on the paper are. Yeah, I know, co-lead. But in any case, we had tried to make a video about that rebuttal, because I think for a while we really thought the channel was going to cover mostly like kind of new research in paleo.
Mhm.
That's why the first thing we started out with, besides like attempting to do that, was our like Fossil Friday reviews.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. For a while, that's really the niche we thought we were going to occupy, and things obviously changed. And I guess we can get to that story soon. But the first recording, I don't think any of us really knew how to be on camera yet.
No.
It was really tough.
Do we now?
We might a little bit. I was really not good at multitasking. Like, I was playing the game and recording everything like on my end. And so I was having trouble like speaking coherently while piloting in the game and all of that sort of thing. And so pretty soon after that, we came up with the idea of having Dalton record the gameplay, streaming for us to see while I like talked about something, or that's a Freudian slip. While I talk about things as if there's not 4 other people talking too. That's very funny.
Hey James, now let's play the game. Which one of us did you read?
Nobody knows. At some point, everybody has to make a mistake about how many people are in the skeleton crew.
I never have. I see all of you as equal.
That's good. I think we've narrowed it down though. Like, at first we were worried that all these comments were leaving Amelia out, but we realized that people were still saying it in videos Amelia was present in, and like other people weren't. I think we actually think it is people conflating you and Scott Dalton. I was looking at Dalton when I said that.
Yeah, you addressed me when Scott talked. So
Right.
yes, clearly,
Yes, exactly. That's what's
happening.
happening. Well, I started looking at you in my Zoom window. You guys keep moving
Hey.
around.
Sorry to interrupt, but we happen to have a Twitter where we've documented some of these things. Do you want to know the first day of recording?
Oh yeah.
Because it's documented. So we announced the channel on July 5th.
Oh,
And then we
I
introduced
forgot.
ourselves over the next week. And then I have a post here that's geared up and ready to record tonight of the 18th of July, 2022. We were so
awesome.
ambitious. For those of you keeping score, we did not present our first video until like December 6th, I want to say.
It was December. I thought it
Day
was
that will
maybe the
live in
9th.
infamy.
It was either
It was
the
the
6th or
9th.
the 9th.
It is the 9th. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
There's a lot
and
of
Wow.
somebody's asking about the 5-hour recording, which is very funny now that we've basically done that kind of a long haul many times. And it's fine now.
Yeah, no, we're just fine now. Like the Marine Species Pack was longer than that, I think, or at least it was close to that. And then we put out the Pteranodon video today was the length of Jurassic World Dominion.
But also, I mean, I think part of that, what's at least I think has, as we've all kind of realized, is how we've come to a better conceptualization of what we want the channel to be and what the length of the videos should be. Because I know early on, and like honestly through relatively recently, we were still not, 100% on the same page about what length the videos should be. And it turns out that the longer form ones seem to actually do just fine, and if not better than some of the shorter ones.
Yeah, like Pteranodon's in our top like percent, like it's
Is
on the upper edge.
Oh, it is it? Oh yeah, it's bumped up since I last looked at it. But anyways,
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the stun lock counter, Eric. Yeah. No, I mean that's exactly the case. But I want to mention one thing about the legendary 5-hour recording that is lost to time because there were so many recording errors. This was the other thing, is we kept having issues with OBS Studio. And like, so the reason that video got scrubbed, I edited a lot of it. And there were some funny jokes in there. But like Dalton's computer did not play nicely with OBS. And so there was it was basically a PowerPoint on his end. And like
it was unusable.
It was unusable, right? And eventually I just gave up. But that was our first time. Oh, sorry, Dalton, go ahead.
I was gonna say, which honestly probably proved to be a good thing for the longevity and like initial success of the channel, is that the video that would have, our series that's going to take several years to complete, would have been done in one 5-hour video.
Yeah.
Right. Which is amazing, given that we can spend like an hour and a half talking about Crichtonsaurus or Muttaburrasaurus, and we somehow did every dinosaur in the game in a 5-hour marathon.
You say somehow. The way we did it was through agony and suffering. Like, it was brutal. I remember it started out like really fun. We were having a great time. And then like 3 hours in, we realized we'd gotten through less than half of the roster, and it just turned into chaos after that.
I remember.
Oh, sorry. You go ahead. No.
Okay.
No,
I have an incredibly distinct memory of at one point literally just being like, just sitting here, like I was in so much like physical, actual pain.
It was like 3 a.m. when we finally wrapped that up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
It was rough.
I remember like having a series of micro sleeps by the end where you could just see me on camera, just like like that for 20 minutes straight. It was terrible. We did it, and the video will never be released. Scott did that one Elmo meme.
Yeah, like I think it is funny for everyone, like release the 5-hour cut or the Patreon cut and stuff. Like, I know that you guys like oh yeah, we sit through the Pteranodon video. No one would enjoy watching this. It's just us being incredibly tired and not knowing how to be on camera.
Because yeah, that's the other important thing about this, is that being our first video, none of us knew how to interact with each other on camera, to put it one way. Like, we've gotten infinitely better about allowing each other to speak, which is something that we struggle with, not because we hate each other, but because we all get excited and want to share our thoughts, and it just turns out, a little messy. So that's taken a lot of practice. And
I literally talked with my therapist about it. Editing these videos has been such an incredible tool for me.
I have not brought up editing these videos in therapy yet.
I don't mean it in a bad way.
I know. I'm sorry. I could not make the joke. No, it's a good point. It really, like, doing this kind of self-driven recording thing really makes you confront like a lot of stuff you do, especially when you go through the edit.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you're cutting out the other problems, it's it's a little bit of an interesting kind of engagement with like seeing yourself with direct feedback. I noticed it especially when I've had to edit videos like the day after recording, because I still remember everything. Like sometimes, sometimes we're ahead and we're many videos ahead of where we need to be. And other times we record the aquatic species pack video. And then the next day I spend 16 straight hours editing it and trying to export it and upload it, which end with the video having literally no ending because the recording platform continued to crash. That was one of the worst days of my entire life.
Oh no.
It was so hard. But the video did great. So it all felt worth it afterward.
I
anyway.
remember getting messages from you, James, that were along the lines of just like, if this flops, if this one's the bridge too far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a good video. Everybody seemed to like it. We got the T-Rex 88 million Newton bite force thing out of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was that one, wasn't it?
That was that one. That was a great one. Which was worse,
Oppenheimer.
dissertation, defense, or editing for 16 hours? Honestly, editing for 16 hours. When you defend your dissertation, when you defend your dissertation, you get to give a talk about your research and then like just get asked questions about it. Writing the dissertation was worse because it was that amount of work per day for like 2 months. I mean, I was working 16 or 17 hours a day. It was not a good time. There's various reasons for that, but I think the main one is just when a lot of your PhD happens during COVID, there's a lot to catch up on toward the end when you can start doing things again. But this is not that story. But I think the story we should start to get towards is how we started, why we abandoned the Fossil Friday review. Dalton, would you like to take this one?
Why we tabled the Fossil Friday review, I think we should say. Because
Tabled, yeah.
We all have intents to return to a more kind of research focused video of that oeuvre, but it's several factors, I think, that led us to kind of the bread and butter of the channel right now, for those who don't know, is us doing a tier list of the dinosaur designs in the Jurassic World Evolution 2 video game. And so we have a wheel of names that we spin at the end of every video that will give us a new dinosaur to look at next week. And we will talk about the dinosaur's design and how it reflects what we know about the dinosaur. And we also can use it as a jumping off point to talk about other things that dinosaur teaches us about. So we can talk about things like learning about the diets of extinct creatures. We talk about the formations that they're found in, things like bipedality, quadrupedality. There's a lot of different topics that the different dinosaurs and non-dinosaur creatures in the game allow us to broach on. And so we can make kind of, if we're being generous, 50 to like 3-hour videos about these animals that are ostensibly us ranking the designs and kind of, do we like them? Are they paleo accurate? But really allow us to talk about a lot of other things. And the reason we have made this the bread and butter of the channel is in part because when we had always planned on doing content about the game because we played it a lot and we thought it would be a good starting point to do outreach. And the first video that we recorded for it, which coincided with the release of a DLC pack for the game, wound up outperforming beyond any of our wildest dreams in terms of how many people were viewing it, how many subscribers it netted us gained, and all that. And we're like, oh wow, there's actually something to producing this kind of content. So we started to focus on doing that. And in doing so, we realized that there's a lot of other things that we kind of like about it and that relate to what we enjoy. So it's similar to content that we consume that isn't paleo. A lot of us on the channel in our free time or in the background of our work will watch kind of longer form video essays discussing some kind of media. And so it's something that we're familiar with and that we enjoy. And the other thing is that it's fairly time effective. So we can produce these videos quickly and fairly easily. All it takes is, me recording, or if I'm not there, someone else recording the gameplay, and then us recording a discussion while we watch the dinosaurs go around. It's fairly resource non-intensive. We can record it in 2 to 3 hours. It's not horrible to edit. And it's pretty simple to edit. I think one of the kind of titles we floated for this meeting was playing to your strengths in SciComm. And that's something that we've kind of had to learn to do with the channel as it's grown. But like, if you asked me before we started, what kind of content do you want to make? I'd love to make, and I still would love to make, really high production value, medium length probably content, kind of like the PBS Eons channel. Like, I think that's really great stuff and love to see that out there in the world. But it's just beyond the capabilities of us as it stands right now. It requires a lot of technical and artistic knowledge and practice that we don't have the time to put into. Whereas doing the kinds of videos that we're doing now allows us to talk about what we want to talk about. It allows us to engage our audience, and to be doing what we want to be doing in terms of SciComm online without having to acquire totally brand new skill sets that take years of practice to do. We're all learning things and getting new skills as part of growing and having the channel, which I also love. Like, I didn't know how to use Adobe Premiere before the channel came to existence. And it's something I had to learn to do and gotten more proficient with as I've edited more and more videos. So we are learning and gaining new skills, but it's not nearly to the level of like, we're going to be professional like animators and things like that. And we want to explore more forms of content. And as we get more free time, which is a bit of a joke in academia. But, you know, as we can develop these skills, I think we'll see our content evolve and go in different directions. We have lots of ideas that just take time, whereas the kind of staple content that we're producing right now is something that we're well practiced with doing. And I think we're really satisfied with the results that it brings.
Yeah, and to kind of jump off that, two other things or topics that I can think of that are related is like with respect to the reason we made the channel. So like, first of all, as you may know, this is none of our main jobs. We are all either, you know, we all have our different jobs. In the case of four of us, we're grad students / researchers, and in one of us, it's a real big adult job. And so it's important for the videos to be something that's not eating away at our time. So I know, for example, in my program, they're very strict about us having other commitments that would eat away time from our PhD research. And one of the reasons that we thought we could do this at all without, you know, taking away from time from our research is that we were already hopping on Discords and playing dinosaurs, like dinosaur video games, and talking about research every night anyway. So it's not like it was really eating into our work time or interfering with that. Yeah, so I think I made my points. I don't know. Very sorry. I'm very tired, as you can tell, probably. But
Yeah.
No, no, I realize I don't actually have anything to add on that. Go on, James.
Well, I do. Well, in that case, thank you. I think one thing also that we haven't really mentioned yet is, you know, I think we talked a lot about at the beginning about kind of our initial motivation to see if we could make a channel was kind of, I don't want to say like self-promotion, but like trying to, I guess, become more tightly integrated into our community online and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like make sure people, you know, knew our names and knew our stuff. Like this is something that I don't know if the other researchers in the group can empathize with, but it's certainly something that I felt a lot. Like you put a lot of work into a paper. It can take months to years of your time. And it's your baby and you love it. And, you know, hopefully you think it's really good and you send it out and it goes through the publication pipeline and then it releases and then it's just out. Right. And it might be years before you even see an acknowledgement of it in the literature, right? Because you got to wait for papers to be published that were already in prep when your paper came out. Sometimes people are really good at, you know, saying, okay, I've got this thing I'm about to submit, a paper that's relevant just came out. Let me add a citation just so that, you know, they get something or because it's directly relevant. But that doesn't always happen. I'm going to check some times on this right now, but I think like one thing that I remember feeling kind of disheartened by, even though it wasn't the author's fault at all. Oh no, never mind. I'm sorry, I had the timing wrong on this. But so there were like some Dromaeosaur papers that came out after Curricula came out. But they were probably submitted before Curricula was released. So they didn't cite Curricula. Now, is that anybody's fault? No, nobody did anything wrong or anything. It's just the way that it goes. But I remember feeling very much like I remember feeling kind of anonymous, right? You just kind of have put this thing out there and you don't really get a lot of immediate feedback on the stuff you've done. I felt that a lot with my first couple of papers because I didn't really have a social media presence at the time. So I didn't even do the thing where you have a Twitter thread where you get like likes and comments and retweets maybe, or whatever they call them now. In any case, that was part of the initial motivation. But when we were starting to think about if we make a channel, what would it be like? Right. We noticed that there was a pretty like wide open niche, it felt like, for a science communication channel in paleontology, where the people making it were like pretty advanced into the field.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, none of us are like tenure track academics yet. God willing, some of us will be at some point. But it is the case that I think a lot of the paleontology channels on YouTube, many of which are very, very good, right, just aren't really like the people running them aren't in that position, right? There's a lot of channels from people who are like really, really interested in paleontology, but aren't really in the field. I think there are some channels from people who are earlier students, but there was nothing that could give you that inside scoop, right? Or really say, I am a scientist with a PhD, or I am somebody who's close to obtaining a PhD, or I am somebody who has worked in fossil preparation for literally over a decade. How do I think about these problems? What does my experience say about some of these issues? How do we start to think about the fossil record?
And a bit.
Yeah, sorry, Dalton. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just a bit like, what would it be like to like sit around the water cooler in like a lab and like hear the people there talking about what they're doing and what other people are doing?
Sorry. And that's kind of exactly what we were talking about earlier, how like this is just what we do. This is just how like, and that's kind of why the videos sometimes end up being a little chaotic, because the point of them has always kind of been like, how do academics and people working with the material firsthand actually talk about the stuff that they're working on? Like what are the thoughts and ideas that are happening there that may or may not happen, outside those circles? Because I don't know if this is an appropriate way to phrase it, but it feels like in the situations where it's folks that are either super early career or just not part of it professionally, it's like there's a degree of separation, right? Like it's not like it's just something that they encounter in their daily life versus like, I'm trying to think of where I was going with this.
Can I jump in? Because I think I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you want to finish.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not going to give any concrete examples because I don't want to risk upsetting anybody who may eventually view this. But there are a lot of things in the field that are kind of considered common knowledge that among paleontologists are known to not be true.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the kind of thing that if you are an interested non-specialist or a student who hasn't really encountered this yet, you might not know this.
Yeah.
I
can give a good positive example.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say,
ahead.
we want to clarify here. This is not to be like a knock on anyone who's other people who are doing this. It's just like I said, there's a degree of separation that like you aren't expected to know these things because a lot of times they're just not openly talked about. Like
Yeah.
a lot of like, especially like for me, like to do a brief example before Scott tells his story, we're gonna flip roles here and I will talk over you with a story. Not really a story, but like for my own specialty working on mosasaurs, like none of the academics, like established academics who study mosasaurs are really active on social media. So it's really easy for just thoughts about mosasaurs to happen and spread among people that are not actually congruent with what the people who work on them actually think. And there's no one who is working on them to step in and say, hey, wait a minute, that's actually not what's going on here. Yeah, anyways, go ahead, Scott.
So I like one of the stories that always like would be in the back of my mind when we were starting off on this is when I got laid off by the AMNH, and I had a year of being home. There was a period of time where I was kind of terrified, like basically the whole time I was kind of terrified that was my shot of being in paleontology. Like that was the one time I had an opportunity to actually like do the thing, do what I've always wanted to do. And because of a once in a generation pandemic, I lost it. Now I'm just going to eventually become a person who has a desk job and knows more about dinosaurs than a lot of people do. And I remember my girlfriend at the time actually like suggested like, hey, there's some people who are doing like outreach stuff on like and like science communication and things like that and like on Instagram. Why don't you do that? And I started going live on Instagram like once a week, and I would do a Q&A on Instagram once a week as well. And it was just something, it kept me in the field, and it kept me like with a little bit of a pulse on how things were going and up to date on new papers and stuff like that. But the biggest thing that I really remember about it is I remember that one person asked me a ridiculous question about like Mothra. I forget exactly what the question was specifically, but it was just like it was along the lines of, could a bug get as big as Mothra? And basically I took that as an opportunity to describe how the square cube law works and how like thermodynamically and also in terms of just structurally a giant insect that's that big wouldn't work. And I like had this whole explanation of it in just like 5 or 6 little like Instagram minute and a half stories. And I remember I got a comment afterwards that was like, I have looked, there was someone saying like, I've heard about the square cube law, I've looked up how it works and stuff before. Your explanation is the first time that this has ever actually clicked to me of how this actually works. And that was something that was always just in the back of my mind, that it wasn't even just like a we think we're better thing. It was just like we can do this. Like we're good at explaining things, and we're also just good friends and have a good dynamic.
I want to jump in here with one story where the similar thing happened to me. It was actually, and this was the first year of my PhD, so this is long before I hadn't met Dalton or Amelia yet, and Scott, you and I just started hanging out. This was like winter of that year.
Yeah.
And I only knew Alex a little bit. We had met, but we weren't like we weren't tight yet, I wouldn't say. Although we were increasingly tight. But in any case, I ran a tour for the AMNH, or at the AMNH for the Metropolitan Society of Natural Historians. It's like a kind of interested group of people who like natural history and biology.
Oh, I remember when this happened.
Right, you remember this tour, right? I'm sure. So I gave this tour, and I remember like I was just walking people through the fossil halls. I'm telling them about what each dinosaur or prehistoric animal can tell us about evolution, right? What do we understand about about early dinosaurs from Coelophysis? What do we understand about how dinosaurs get large from Tyrannosaurus and Allosaurus and sauropods and things like that? And I remember somebody afterward coming up to me and just being like, you must be a very in-demand dinner guest in New York City. And I said, that is not the case, but I appreciate that. And then they said, can we give you our phone number so that you can have dinner with us sometime? We want to hear more about paleontology. And I said, yes. And they never contacted me.
That was going to be my follow-up.
I know. No, they never contacted me. But it was the first time that my ability to communicate this stuff was ever really like sold by people I didn't already know. Like I certainly had done similar things for friends before. I remember in college, we took a big trip to the AMNH and like everybody was like, that was a really, really great tour, but they were my friends, right? This was a group of strangers. And I thought maybe there's something here about communicating things to the public. Maybe this is something we've got some skill in. And I think it's something we all do pretty well in like intrinsically. And it's something we've all worked at. So it was definitely something I thought that we could do successfully on the channel.
Yeah, and I don't want us to understate like how much work this has been. And even prior to this, like outreach isn't something that you can just do. I think it's something that a lot of people don't really, especially in the days of social media. Like I've certainly seen people not make fun of, but talk down about like science communicators and stuff online, not fully understanding how difficult that kind of a career path or that kind of skill set is. And like it's something that, as James said, like most of us had already had a bit of experience with prior to starting this, and that's part of why we thought we could actually do this and do it well. Because we try, we try to be humble about when people are like tell us how well the channel is doing and stuff, we try to be humble, but like the real answer is like we expected it to do well because we, you know,
Oh my God, letting everybody in behind the veil.
let's be honest, right? Like, what's the point of hiding things? Like, the point is like there is a reason it took 6 months to release a video, and it's because we buckled down and did the research into, okay, what makes a YouTube channel successful? What makes science outreach successful? Are these things that we can achieve? And, you know, the answer to all that is yes. And like, I want to just kind of articulate that because, as you might have seen a little bit here, like we've all faced imposter syndrome with the kind of work that we do, especially, you know, with the channel and related things. But like, you know, it's been really weird, but in a good way, to see that, you know, for example, this year, the channel has made a big enough impact that we've been allowed to control a major part of fundraising for the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology. Like, when they emailed us that they had sent our stickers design to the president of the society and it was approved by them directly, it was like, oh, this is real. Okay, cool, you know. Oh man, okay, I think another point quickly that I know we were going to talk about that we didn't get to that I'm now remembering,
and then we'll transition to some Q&A
and then we'll transition to Q&A, yes. Is just it's kind of tying into this like skill set of communication. An argument or discussion, I'll say discussion, it was really a lot of arguments. The heated discussions that we had earlier on also with deciding how we wanted to handle the channel, a lot of them centered around how we wanted to phrase things. So to what extent should we use jargon? To what extent should we actually explain the topics or the words that we're using? And I think, James, you had a good synopsis of this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, and I remember, you know, I want to emphasize we were arguing A, because we cared, and B, because we did have good points. And I mean, like, the discussion essentially was, do we try to dumb things down to kind of a very accessible level? Or do we like try to respect that our audience is interested enough that if they don't know what we're talking about, they'll like kind of engage with the content and try to learn like words or scientific terms that they don't already know. Right. And that is not a trivial argument. Like, most newspapers are written at a like 4th grade reading level because like they want a large audience, and a lot of people, you know, you could make this an indictment of the American educational system as much as you will, but like a lot of people read at a 4th grade level. Like, that is like where you want to target things, where you can talk about things with enough complexity, but like that's where most people are going to meet you. And I think you know, obviously the decision we wound up coming to after a little bit of trial and error with doing it multiple ways was, let's kind of appreciate the fact that the people who are watching these videos really care about the stuff we're talking about. These are long videos. My God, people are roasting us in the chat sometimes.
No, it's just me today.
I know, it's just you.
I'm the punching bag today.
It's nice when it's not me about my height, like it was this morning with the video.
Good Lord.
People like, can we get an unbiased third party to measure James? It's insane. There's pictures of us all standing together. You can see how tall I am.
It's all forced perspective, like the Peter Jackson.
It was unfortunately really mean, but extremely funny. That comment in particular. Funny. Some of them were just mean, but that one I laughed really.
No, Kevin, it's okay. Like, the fact that we mentioned this in the videos means it's an okay thing to joke about, but I was just like, it's so funny. But anyway, we really we released long videos. So we thought people care about what we're saying. I think and like when we talk about jargon, I'm not just saying, you know, like that we explain phylogenetic terms with no explanation whatsoever. You'll notice that we always try to explain things we think are probably a little too esoteric to get on their own. But like, can we say premaxilla, or do we need to say the bone at the front of the snout?
Mm-hmm. I remember you specifically using the phrase before of like, it sounds like we're casting spells.
Right. People have said that.
Yeah. Yeah, we got that comment once. It was post-psychopotheses.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that's an important thing that we do. And I personally don't kind of care if that is holding us back from a huge audience. I don't think it is. But I think I'd rather personally make the kind of content where it's like, yeah, this is kind of high level stuff. We're talking about this like academics do. we try to explain what we think people might need help with, but we trust that the audience isn't engaged enough and following enough that, you know, if they need to look something up, they can, or they'll understand it through context clues and they learn something new. Because that is, as an early grad student, how you learn a lot of this stuff. Like I was never sat down by my doctoral advisor in front of a skull with him like using a little probe to point at every feature on a skull and, you know, saying, okay, this is the attachment site for this muscle, this is the hole for this nerve. It was, you know, have you looked at the recessus scale tympani in that animal? Like, what does it look like? You have to figure out what that means. And I think it kind of mirrors what we go through educationally a little bit. It might be helpful for our audience who might eventually be going through that process themselves, or may have already done so. Anyway, should we transition to Q&A?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think
Indeed,
so. I think
yeah, for the last 10 minutes.
well,
Yeah.
10 minutes, or I mean, David can confirm. I don't think anything is scheduled after us until 8 o'clock.
Can David confirm? We're
Yes.
good for a bit.
Okay.
All right. There are also not a tremendous number of people in chat. I think we probably can get through most people's questions in the time we've got.
Yeah.
But yeah, submit any questions in chat. Oh, I see Eli already has a question. Have any of us played Paraworld?
No, but I've always looked at it. It's for those of you who are unaware, it's a real-time strategy game with like using dinosaurs in it, and it has some really neat kind of almost Dinotopia-esque designs for like all these war mounts of dinosaurs and stuff. It's a really, really, really neat like artistic game. I've heard it sucks, but it's also apparently kind of hard to get running on modern software, or hardware. Blech.
Yeah, I always wanted to play it. I love RTSs. And I would love to play one on the channel because it would give me an excuse to play one, but we'll see. I saw we had another question from Isaac Brown. Do any of us regret joining the channel?
No.
Every
I
once
do
in a
not.
while. No. No.
The only time I have ever regretted it was just, you know, there have been, and I don't really regret it because I'm very proud of this channel and it brings me a lot of happiness and meaning in the stuff that we do that I didn't have for a long time. And so my answer is no. But I mean, sometimes it's stressful. And there have been times where I felt like, you know, so much of the time I'm spending with my friends is about work that it makes me sad that there have been times where it's so work intensive that we're not able to spend time just hanging out with each other. That's the only time I ever come close to an emotion like that. Personally.
Yeah. Let's see. So Addison has a question for us that's what will you do when you get to covering Spinosaurus?
Edit heavily.
And make a long video. Like, there's no
We
way around it.
already did one of our first videos.
It was our first video.
Yeah, our first video was covering some Spinosaurus stuff. So if you go back, and literally our very first video was talking about some new Spinosaurus research, and I can let James take a little bit more of this one, but one of the reasons why we wanted to do a little bit of like the wheel or something is just to see if we get some, like, just add some fun randomness to it. But like covering some controversial things. I mean, we cover some controversial stuff already on the channel, at least paleontologically, like with Torosaurus and stuff.
Ontogeny.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Spinosaurus is going to be a tricky one. We're going to have to really critically engage with a lot of the literature.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it is a difficult thing to take a stance on because there are some very influential people on both sides of the arguments. And there's a lot of good research on both sides of the arguments. So, like, this is not there's one side that knows everything and there's one side that's being dumb. There's like fundamental disagreements about how to answer these questions. And my hope is that when we get to Spinosaurus, we really want to talk about how do we know what it looked like? How do we, like, what do we do? How does this scientific question get answered? I hope we can kind of use that as a way to understand the scientific process. right? We'll have to engage with a lot of the paper. This is one that I think we're going to need to like do a lot of reading and a lot of prep work for in advance, just because it's going to be the most complicated video we've made. Yes, that's why we always just say we're not dealing with it right now, because like, quite frankly, I haven't engaged with the literature enough to really know where I stand on any of these debates or how to even like offhand without prep compare them to one another. It's not
one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons why Pteranodon ended up being as long as it was. It wasn't just that it was the first time Dalton was back and we were doing a like get the gang back together and sort of thing about a relatively well-known animal, but there's a lot of ground to cover on a really interesting animal. And granted, there's like almost an infinite percent more Pteranodon than there are Spinosaurus, but
yeah,
still,
no, it's a tough thing to do. I mean, that's, you know, we joke, but the T-Rex video eventually will probably be a very long one as well. T-Rex is one of the most thoroughly studied animals that has ever existed. Like, not dinosaurs, animals in general.
It's like what, third or fourth behind like humans and mice and Drosophila?
Something like that. Yeah. It's really high up there.
James, I do not believe your figure on that, honestly.
Well, I heard this somewhere. I gotta find it.
You have to, because I'm just like, zebrafish, really? Like,
is this,
like there's a lot of.
I think if you're not counting research that uses them as a model organism, like if you're just talking about like anatomical work, then yes.
Fine. Okay.
Right. Like zebrafish experiments or mouse experiments are obviously going to throw it off, but like there's a lot of literature on human anatomy. There's a lot of literature on mouse anatomy for the model system stuff. And then there's like T-Rex and Eusthenopteron. Like there's not a lot that has been researched in that level of detail. But anyway, we'll vet that when we get to it.
Well,
regardless, there's a lot of research on it.
Yeah. We have a couple other questions, such as Eric Ames also asks, how far in advance do you guys record your videos before uploading them? Dalton, you want to take this one?
Yeah. Sure. So the answer is it depends. Ideally, we like to have a couple weeks time. It's varied over the course of the development of the channel, right? And so at the beginning, James was editing every video, and I don't know exactly how that time went, but I imagine it was pretty much just week by week. And can you confirm that?
Well, so it was actually funny. Right before I did my big travel in the spring, we pre-recorded a lot, and I edited out almost 2 months worth of videos in one day, which nearly killed me. But I was just banging them out, like one after the other, after the other, after the other. But we made a really concerted effort to pre-record as much as we could. Yeah, and before I was traveling. Yeah, as Scott and I have started also editing videos, the individual load on each person has lessened. Although we can pick up the slack for people when they're away traveling.
Premiere makes it really easy to pick up the slack on someone else's editing.
Yeah, and we don't have to plan like 2 months of videos ahead of time because just one person will be gone. So the load for prep in some ways has been reduced because we have more editors, but at the same time it has changed the timeline a little bit in that we're not having as much in advance done. When we know we're all going to be gone for something, we do make a concerted effort to try to plan out when videos are going to premiere. And like, we know that this video is going to come out on the 5th and this one's the 12th and this one's the 19th, and so on. And if we know there's going to be a gap in that, then we will make an effort to say like, we need to record a couple different videos tonight so that we can have enough to get through this. And we're kind of always chasing a buffer. We'd like to have probably ideally a like 3 to 4 video buffer. It would make everyone's life easier. And there have been occasions where we've had that, where we've been like, we're recording this video like in June and we know it won't come out to the beginning of August. But it's more of a rarity just because we're all very busy people, and also our busyness is not synchronous. And so someone will be gone in June and Alex and I were gone in October. And so we're kind of always chasing this ideal of we would like to have more buffer than we get. But in doing so, I think, it can get a little chaotic at times, but for the most part, we're not at least anymore stressing a ton about our editing timeline. in our recording timeline.
Yeah.
Well, there's a question that Isaac Brown asked that I think I'll actually piggyback into a slightly broader question. He asked, when is the 10-hour roast of Henry Osborne coming out? But I think I'll do that a little bit broader, because this is something I'm not even actually sure if I brought this up to you guys, that I would love to do a series on essentially like the history of the people of paleontology, that partially our video on Megalosaurus, with just like half of it being, hey, this is basically just a little bit of a biography of William Buckland being weird. Very weird. Very weird. But there's a lot of like historical paleontologists that I find fascinating, or that like there's not a lot of easy, it's filling the niche thing. It's like there's not a lot of readily available sources that are discussing these things. Like we have a lot of like you can find a lot of things on Darwin and stuff like that, but when it comes to like Baron Nobshka, you're going to be hard pressed to find anything besides a select number of books and his memoirs.
Right. And I think, in talking about Osborne in particular, like the further back you go in evolutionary biology, the more likely you are to find a rabid eugenicist. It's just a sad reality of our field, right? The history of thought on evolution and the fossil record is really intimately tied to this great inhumanity of eugenics, and the kind of atrocities that were wrought by it. They are not really easily separated. Funny enough, they're separated under Darwin, who I don't think Darwin would be considered a progressive today, but he certainly was not as virulently racist as like his cousin who invented eugenics, or anything like that. But after you get into the post-Darwinian era, like a lot of these people have really, really, really difficult and problematic and harmful beliefs that they were very vocal about. Right? Henry Fairfield Osborne, again, for those of you who missed it, like created the American Eugenics Society, and his writings were like explicitly inspirational to the Nazis in Germany. He is a bad guy. So I know we've been waiting to cover him in detail until we actually have time to, probably for the first time, script a video. We want any video we release to be like watchable and kind of at least at some points lighthearted, but we don't want to give the impression that we're being flippant or kind of are minimizing what he did. So it's got to be very, very delicately written, and so we're going to be writing it pretty carefully, because we want to like make fun of him but never sound like we're making fun of somebody else, or anything that he thought, or taking it not seriously, or thinking that it's not harmful. Right, taking it lightly, which we certainly don't do.
There's an idea that for a video that we've had that I won't necessarily share right now, because I don't know if it'd be counted as spoiling, because it's really Alex's idea and Alex isn't here to talk about it, so I won't take it from him. But it's kind of on the same topic of a controversial historical figure who's done some really bad things, but in doing so, it's tied to the history of paleontology, and so this is something we do want to tackle at some point. But yeah, like James said, it's something that would require a lot more time and planning on our end to make sure that we know the full context of everything that we would need to address, and the right tone and everything that we would need to talk about it with. And it's something we just haven't had between the five of us. We have not had that time to sit down and actually script something out and do the research to make sure that it was handled appropriately.
Right. And I think I just want to make sure that it's clear, like we absolutely want to cover this stuff, because we think it is critical that our community of paleontologists engages with this aspect of its past. It's not good to ignore it, and I think that it's something that we are in a position to do. We know a lot of stuff about these issues, and we know more than a lot of paleontologists might, especially because Amelia and I have been at an institution that is obviously very tied to some of these people. Henry Fairfield Osborne was president of the AMNH for a long time. So, we're going to cover the stuff. We really want to make sure we do it justice, and we want to make good videos that are informative, that are fun to watch and not incredibly depressing, but that never take these incredibly important issues lightly. So, that's the as Isaac has said, mature and thoughtful response to a silly question.
The
Thank you,
rope
Isaac.
I just want to I want to address that we accidentally skipped over Kevin Preem's question. So I just want to briefly make sure we get him. He asked, have we considered doing videos on the JPOG designs, Jurassic Park Operation Genesis? I don't know if we've considered that.
I don't think we've discussed it. I mean, I don't.
Not
I'd be for it, but
not explicitly, although like I know it is something that we do talk about in some of the videos that feature critters that are also in that game. Like and the one that really comes to mind is the Carcharodontosaurus video. That I know we have a little discussion about how we thought that that design just kicked ass, honestly. And then Alex clowned on me for not knowing about it before a video game taught me about it. But yeah, like I think that some more retro, like honestly, I've definitely had the thought of like, oh man, we should go back and cover some more retro media, video games, movies, stuff like that. But we haven't had much of a chance to because we've been in a little bit of a golden age of new paleo media. Of like, it seems like a new documentary or game or something is coming out every other month, where it's just like, okay, we did Prehistoric Planet, now are we ready for life on our planet? And now we're like, oh, there's a new update to there's a new DLC for Jurassic World Evolution. Oh, do we want to talk about the graphical overhaul on Ark Survival Evolved? Oh, what about the new animal that was just added to Prehistoric Kingdom? Like, oh, have you seen the new incredibly professionally made YouTube short, the like short film that came out? Do we want to talk about those dinosaur designs? And it's just like, it's like we don't even have time to go back and talk about like PBS's dinosaurs exclamation mark and stuff.
I want
And oh god, me too. I love that show so much. But like,
I want to so badly,
and
but yeah,
and we will at some
Yeah.
point. Like once
We have like it's either a Google Doc or a spreadsheet going of like ideas of things we want to talk about. And I think these retro things came about, at least in part. I remember it was like a couple months ago. Year ago, I don't know, time doesn't matter. I went to the New York Philharmonic to see The Rite of Spring, and that got me thinking about Fantasia and how the Fantasia dinosaur segment, which was set to The Rite of Spring, got me thinking about how influential that was for me. But also like, as it's a really neat snapshot in time, because Fantasia is from 1940, and that's before we knew about, the asteroid. It's before we knew about a lot of things. And we, developed that idea into like, we should talk about media that influenced us when we were younger, because it might not necessarily be Jurassic Park or even Walking with Dinosaurs. Like, that there's these other bits and bobs that have shaped us into what we are and how we think about these things. Yeah.
And
yeah.
To be a little bit behind the scenes too, in terms of Scott's mentioning of like, there's a ton of new stuff coming out. There's a big consideration we have whenever anything new comes out of, do we want to try to make something that's going to be very timely, and we'll have a video that comes out like when this premieres, which is why we did for Prehistoric Planet season 2, we had an episode that came out every day that coincided with the episode of Prehistoric Planet that had come out, I believe, the day prior, because we needed time to watch it. Because there is, in terms of our first, I think, consideration on anything we do is this going to be fun to talk about? Is it going to be interesting? Like, is it going to be something that people want to see? But there is a secondary concern of like, is this going to be optimized for how the YouTube algorithm functions? Like, if we make a video on something and it's coinciding with a premiere or something recent, those tend to do very well in terms of views. And we're not chasing views, I think, out of any kind of like self-serving desire of like, oh, it feels, and like because it does feel good to get a video that has a lot of views, but we're also trying to be cognizant of, if we're doing this outreach, right, we do want to reach a broad audience, and we want it to get as many eyes on it as possible, because that is part of the goal of educating is educating a lot of people. And so yeah, as we have new things come up, they're more likely to get priority over something like Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, which is like something we probably all want to do. Certainly I would love to do. It just is a matter of kind of when are we going to have the opportunity to do that, and we will eventually, right? But
Right. No, of
And-
course.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's just, yeah, it is a constant discussion. And I mean, after the Prehistoric Planet season 2 week dropped, which was probably the worst single week of my life in recent memory in terms of workload, because I remember saying, I think we should make a separate video about each episode. And so I said, because I'm putting this on our schedules, it's only fair if I edit it. And so we were like frantically watching the episode, recording a discussion of it. And then everybody would hop off and I would just immediately start editing. And I mean, I just remember the night I was doing the 4th one and I just said, hey, Dalton, I can't survive. I need you to do the last one. I can't do it, boss.
I was doing
You-
field work
yeah,
and
you were in the
blissfully
field.
unaware of the pain that was happening.
It was so hard. It's just, anything we want to cover winds up being more time, right? Like, this is why you'll notice that we haven't released a video about like scientific accuracy in Prehistoric Planet recently. We did the Mononicus video, but we want to kind of give those videos a little bit more emphasis. We want to give, or not emphasis, but we want to give them more research. We want to give them more consideration. We want to find a way to do them that YouTube doesn't flag and demonetize and downweight in the algorithm because you used a clip from Prehistoric Planet. So
Or
there's a
maybe
lot of
we
things
just-
that we're trying to figure out the right way to do.
Mhm.
And when we can invest our time in them. I remember being very annoyed that the Hatchling came out during SVP because it was just the one time we literally could not cover it as it released on the channel, and I would have loved to.
Mhm.
It just wasn't good timing for us. October in general is a really difficult month.
Maybe there's a chance that we'll talk about it on our 12-hour live stream tomorrow that y'all should check it out.
Oh dear God, right.
Yeah. Before we talk about that, because I think we should talk about that slightly in terms of to kind of circle back to the point of this panel, which is why we made the channel and the things we hope to achieve with it. I just want to briefly bring up something that Dalton mentioned about reaching an audience. Something that I've noticed, at least I'm sure the others have noticed as well, that I think is really, really cool, if I can speak, about us in a positive way. Is that it feels like, or it seems like we have broken into an audience that's different from the kind of audience that we have on, say, Twitter, as individuals, right? So there's the paleo Twitter community, which is a lot of like paleo enthusiast people that are really dedicated to learning about dinosaurs and that kind of thing. And then there's like, for example, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, but like, then there's like our patrons, for example. And it's like, I didn't recognize any of our patrons, save for like David and like 2 other people prior to them joining that community. And I think it's because we focused on the video game aspect a little bit first, to say. It's just, I guess the point of this is it feels like we're stepping into another community that a lot of other paleo content has not, just in terms of like the kinds of like the names that I see in the circles. And I think that's really, I don't know, it's been really cool for me to see us bridging that gap, so to speak, because like we get so many comments of people who are like, wow, I've never thought about that before, and now I want to, or like we every now and then we'll get one that's like, wow, now I'm looking up what phylogeny is and how it works, and this is super interesting. Like it's and then like also thinking about of the patrons that have shared their careers with us, it's like none of them are paleontologists. Some of them do field work or volunteer at museums or whatever, but like none of them are the same people that we run into on Instagram or Twitter and in these other like paleo communities, if that makes sense. And I think that speaks to, the effectiveness of using something like Jurassic World, the video game, to talking about these topics in a way that's accessible to people who are otherwise not actually, directly exposed to the research itself.
And I think that's an important thing that a lot of science communicators need to think about is like, is this supposed to be in-group or out-group communication? Right? It's something I think is, I am not a professional, like, de-radicalizer of, people who've gone down bad political paths or something, but I think it's a similar thing where, or the same principle applies. It's not like we're trying to de-radicalize our audience away from not being paleontologists to being paleontologists or something. But the principle
no,
is
you've said too much.
I know. We got to wrap up the channel right now.
Run.
Great talking to you guys. It is important to know how to reach the audience you need to reach. right? We know that dinosaurs have a really big advantage in terms of public outreach because people intrinsically like them a lot. But it's okay. You know, I don't think we could release a 2-hour video about Pteranodon that doesn't claim to be about a video game and get anywhere near the number of people we get watching it. But when you frame it in something that is, you know, it's a video game, it's a popular game, it's a popular media franchise, and it's about dinosaurs, now you've got a lot more people who are willing to hear what you have to say. I checked the stats while we were doing this panel just because I was interested. And for those curious about the Malta DLC pack video that really started everything for us, even though it was not our first video, it has been viewed almost 40,000 times. 30 of which were today.
What?
30, not 30,000, right?
No, 30 times.
30,000 of which were right now.
No, I'm sorry.
It's going up again.
Now, it's also single-handedly gotten us over 10% of our subscribers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry. Yes. James misspeaking about numbers is never going to get old.
I think, and James, if you don't mind me piggybacking a little bit.
No, not at all. Yeah, go ahead.
What you're talking about is related both in terms of like if you're looking to do SciComm of any kind, strategizing and knowing your audience is extremely important, and also strategizing and knowing your platform, like logistically, I mean, is very important. Like when we started the YouTube channel, we did kind of have to learn like how, and it's a mystery to everyone because Google doesn't make it public, but like how does the YouTube algorithm work? And you can kind of figure it out by testing things and hearing from other YouTubers, like how their videos are performing and what makes certain things perform well, what makes certain things perform differently. And as we're trying to grow our audience and reach our audience, I think, you know, we were able to tap into a new audience because we weren't making videos and focusing and targeting on like people who are already watching tons of other paleo YouTubers who are all doing great content of their own kinds, and everyone's filling their own unique niche. But like there is this kind of broader paleo space within which a lot of content operates, and we want to operate within that, but we're like we also want to get out of that space and try to reach new people and beyond just kind of I don't want to say metaphysical, but I guess it's the best kind of way I can describe it. Beyond kind of a metaphysical, how do we reach beyond this? There are like logistical tools that you can do to be like, we're gonna tag our videos under gaming instead of under science, and we're going to like tag it with the game. And this is just going to, by virtue of how this machine operates, these videos are going to get recommended to different people who might be interested in like, oh, you know, I play this video game. Oh, these are paleontologists. What do they think about it? And this just came up on my little sidebar, or it came up in the videos that come up at the end of another video. And it's giving people who wouldn't otherwise have seen your videos the opportunity to click on them. I think is really important for growing an audience. And so like I certainly can't speak to how one might go about doing that on another platform. Like if you wanted to do like Instagram or something like that, I'm woefully unknowledgeable about those things. But whatever platform you're choosing to perform your science communication on, there is you should know the platform well and try to play the game of however that platform drives engagement and can funnel your content towards the audiences that you want to get it right.
And like one thing, I mean, we laugh when YouTubers say, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. But like the algorithm that YouTube uses to recommend videos is based on a large measure on how frequently the video is engaged with. And that is its likes and its comments and subscriptions generated from that. And so every video is kind of like a snowball. If it fails immediately, it will not pick up traction.
Yeah.
Right. The only thing that could be argued to be like that is the Malta DLC pack, but that actually started a lot stronger than any of our other videos at the time. And something clearly happened where YouTube like algorithmically showed it to many, many more people immediately. And I think it was because it got a very strong immediate response. We all woke up one day and we noticed that it had gone from 1,000 views to like 4,000 views or something. And we were just like, all right, what's going on now? And then it just went from there. It's also like why we wound up settling on making longer videos. Like we did notice that when they were over an hour, they tended to do better than if they were under an hour. We
Yeah.
don't really know fully like what the landscape of that sort of thing is, but we know from other people that have tested this. And Dalton found this result, actually. It was an interesting test. The algorithm favors videos that are more than an hour.
Yeah,
Probably because they can show more ads.
This test, by the way, featured a YouTuber who was like, I want to see how this video performs compared to my other videos. And she had previously been making videos with a company, and now she was making videos independently, and some of her shorter stuff wasn't performing probably as well as it should have, honestly, given her prior reach and like base audience. And she was like, I'm going to make this video, and it's got 10 minutes of content at the front, and I'm going to tell you right now that this video is going to be like an hour and a half long, and then for like an hour after this 10 minutes, it's just going to be like footage of like a fireplace or something, and then I'm going to come back at the end to sign off. And she's like, I promise there's going to be no content. And she's like, if you want to leave this open in another tab, I'd really appreciate it, because the length of duration also matters. And despite the fact that this was a video that ostensibly had pretty much no content, it became one of her highest performing videos, simply by virtue of whatever the algorithm is doing in the back end favoring that length.
Right. Because the number of people, the number of eyes that's in front of matters. Probably it's the most important thing. It has primacy over every other factor.
I'll say one thing to just transition us to a last topic, and we can wrap up and let the rest of these good people get on with their night and
go see Cam's talk.
And go see Cam's talk.
Cam's
yeah.
talk.
So in the last 10 minutes, I want to say that one of the biggest things that I will personally say has been one of the biggest things that I'm most proud of this channel is the good that we've been able to do with it.
Oh my God, we never got back to that.
That's why we said before in our meeting yesterday that I would be the moderator and hope. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, like, when we first had the idea to like, hey, we should do we actually decided to drop the meme and just go like, hey, actually, maybe we should do a stream. And we had the thought of like, if we're going to do a stream first, it should be something that's for good. And we did the stream for the Trevor Project. And we started out, I know that we've told like snippets of this story before. And for those of you who were there, you watched it in real time, that we thought, especially like our audience is mostly like our age or younger. And they're like, we don't have a lot of disposable income and all that stuff. And so we thought like, hey, we'll do a 12-hour live stream. Those are always fun and exciting when other like Twitch streamers and stuff do them. And we'll try to see if we can raise $1,000 for the Trevor Project because it's Pride Month. And then we beat that in 45 minutes, and we had it doubled in like an hour and a half or something like that, or less. And but not just like these charitable streams, which we'll talk about more in a minute. I'll let Amelia take point on that because she's kind of been our stream guru on this, but also being able to share really awesome research from people who you don't get a chance to hear from that often, or are just starting out. Like the other a month ago when we had that video interview about new specimens of Pompophoneus, that really awesome dinocephalian from Brazil that was chatting with some of the researchers who I had the pleasure of working with when I was down doing some field work there. Well, James was having the worst week of his life, and I was eating a steak for literally every meal and more chicken hearts than you can possibly imagine. And like being able to like use our platform to help people out and help get other people able to be have their work presented as well has been a huge benefit, and something that we want to do more in the future. It's a blast. And so to take us out, I'll hand it over to Amelia, and she could talk about our charitable streams, both past and future.
Yeah. So I remember whenever it was that we initially decided to, okay, we're going to actually do this thing. A big part of this was, okay, at some point we're going to start making money from ads and whatever else. And if we do ever decide to do live streams, we will be raising money. And I remember from the get-go, we were like, wouldn't it be so cool if we could, donate a bunch of money to the SVP? Because, for a bit of background, you all probably know this, attending the SVP meeting right now. But the SVP is, the biggest professional organization for vertebrate paleontologists. And we thought it would be really cool and important to give back to this organization that has, facilitated our careers, basically, because the SVP meeting every year is basically a chance for us to network with people, find new collaborators, find new advisors, and be on the lookout for new jobs and opportunities. And so I don't know exactly why we decided this year was the year we were going to do it, for the Pride stream, at least. I think it was because, again, we've probably said this now, but while we did expect the channel to do well, because we put work and effort into making sure that it did do well, it took off a lot quicker than we had expected. And so last summer we thought, okay, Pride Month is coming up. This is our opportunity to do what we said we were going to do, at the start of this, and actually raise money for a good cause. And so, as we've alluded to, that stream wound up raising over $7,000 for the Trevor Project, which was above and beyond any of our wildest dreams. And so this year, with the SVP meeting happening, we thought, okay, let's try. And I think actually what started it was David reached out to us about this panel. And in the talks for getting this organized, one of us, I can't remember who initiated this, was like, hey, wait a minute, could we also do a live stream? And it was something we were thinking about doing anyway, to raise money for, I don't think we'd actually identified an award at that point, but we were like, we want to raise money for one of the student awards, because as primarily students, we want to give back to other people who are starting out and all that. And we asked David, we're like, hey, if we did a live stream for this, is there any way that we could get the SVP to support it to some official degree and, promote it for us? And he's like, I don't know, but here are the people who will know. So we reached out to them and we managed to coordinate with them. We had, a business meeting with Julie Meekum, who's the member of the development committee. And she was totally on board, with this idea. Because there was initially a bit of, hesitation on our part for if this was something that the SVP would condone, being that the SVP is a little, how do I phrase this? Not adept with technology per se, which is not on them. It's just something, it's still a new platform, just in general for professional societies and jobs and things. So we weren't sure how they would feel about a handful of students doing a live stream on their behalf. But it turns out they were all for it, which is fantastic. And when we asked if we could, make a sticker to give out for people who donated as motivation to donate, they were all for that. And so we co-opted, this year's meeting logo, which had a Gorgosaurus and the Cincinnati to have our logo, with the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology. And then we didn't know until after they sent the email that this went all the way to the top for approval, which was a little fun, scary in a good way, when they emailed us back and was like, yeah, the president says it looks good. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So yeah, and then the reason that we chose the Futures Award, as we've said multiple times, is that it will help undergraduate students who would otherwise not have the opportunity to do research to do so. And as we've emphasized, I'm sure, several times, hands-on experience, whether it's research or prep or education and outreach, is really the currency of this field. It's what you need to get jobs, whether that job is as a PhD student or a technician or any of that. And some people just don't necessarily have the resources it takes to partake in those opportunities, because a lot of them are not paid. And that's just the reality of paleo in general. So many opportunities that you need to get a job in this field don't pay you, and not everyone can afford to do that, literally. So the Futures Award is really important for helping students to kickstart their careers and actually get a foot in the door professionally. So if we manage it, we will, if we hit our $10,000 goal, we will fully fund 2 of these awards. So we'll support research projects for 2 students. And that's, I think that would be really incredible. And as of right now, we're hovering at about $3,000. So we're almost halfway there. And tomorrow, from noon to midnight, we're gonna try to get there.
We're going to get the rest of the way there.
Yep.
Yes, we
Good
are.
time.
All right, so I think we should wrap up really quick,
Yep.
so that everybody who wants to go see Cam's panel can see Cam's panel. I think
Yep.
we're gonna transition over to prepping for tomorrow's stream.
Yep.
But I want to just say two things. One, thank you to all of the people who watch the Skeleton Crew, who support us and support our fundraising efforts and everything we try to do. All of it means a lot, and all of those sleepless nights editing feel a lot more worth it when we see this kind of response. The second thing is that dinosaur in the logo is a Daspletosaurus, not a Gorgosaurus.
I'm
And
sorry.
but I didn't interrupt you when you were talking.
Thank you.
But I
Wow,
held
character
the thought.
development.
I know,
Oh.
we're trying.
I want to chime in very briefly just to say that Alex does send his regrets that he couldn't join. He had a serious thing come up that he had to attend to. So he does wish he could be here. But we all understand that more important things are going on.
Yep.
Yep.
No,
Yeah,
yes,
so-
this, and all joking aside, Alex was not just forgetting that this happened.
Yeah.
He could not make it.
Yeah.
But yes, okay, guys, enjoy Cam's panel. Thank you so much for coming, and we will hopefully see you guys at the stream tomorrow.
See you
Thank
tomorrow,
all very
guys.
much.
See you.